Nikita Golov, the Russian Nightmare, world champion wrestler. And you are listening to Shadows Podcast. Stay tuned, or the Russian Nightmare come looking for you. Jetoeta.
Hey everybody, this is Caleb, host of the Shadows Podcast. Bodie and I are eager to bring you, our listeners, a unique new take on professional and personal development through a brand new show. On March 4th, we will be bringing you a unique opportunity to enhance your life through the Ignite podcast. Our first episode will feature the incredible Shay Sparks. You might remember her from episode 8 of the Shadows Podcast. On Ignite, Shay will be delivering exclusively for the first time ever through this platform her Spark Your Alpha series. Shay will cover areas in dealing with anxiety, stress, PTSD, and finding value in your purpose. So be sure to listen in on March 4th for this illuminating first episode of a 5-part series. You can find Ignite everywhere you listen to the Shadows Podcast, because you can't have the shadows without the light.
Hello, my name is Tim Bring the Pain Lane, and I'm a world kickboxing champion. Today, you're watching the Shadows Podcast. And anybody that's watching today, active duty or retired, you're welcome to visit my site at timlanefitness.com and receive 1 week free to my all-access, on-demand training where we develop how to dream, believe, and achieve our best life. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and I'll see you soon.
Hey everyone, this is Bodie, host of the Shadows Podcast. Subscribe and download us on over 10 podcast platforms, and make sure you follow us on all our social media accounts. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shadows Podcast. So I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Shadows Podcast. I am your host, Trip Bodenheimer, and I am joined today by my co-host, Jonathan Batista. What's up, Batista?
Hey, how's it going? I was in Mount Charleston yesterday, so it was cool because I went on a drive up there. I wasn't expecting snow, but halfway through it started snowing and then it started sticking. So I got pretty lucky being in the mountains, especially in Las Vegas area, right? You don't really get to experience snow, and it's only 30 minutes from my house. So it was a good experience, and I'm really happy I brought my truck up there. So I'm excited for this podcast. How was your day going?
Just living the life in beautiful Montgomery, Alabama. We did not get snow. We've got like rain and just nastiness throughout the holidays. So the time we're recording this is December. We got the garage gym, and I go out there. I'm like, it's too cold. My weights are too cold. So I bought a little heater. So I've got a little heater turned on, and I have to let my gym warm up before I go out there. So yeah, I'm living life. But no, today we have Connor and Lucrecia Bocanegra that are here with us today. They are both non-commissioned officers in the United States Air Force. They are both professional military education instructors, both teach in Airman Leadership School down at Nellis. So I'm kind of the oddball out on this one. I am like being this 3-on-1 here with Nellis ALS. So if this episode goes south, I can imagine at the break room how bad y'all gonna be bad-mouthing me on this one. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be able to have this opportunity. So thank you. And finally, good to see your face.
Exactly.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This is definitely going to be a very good episode. And I'm going to start first with y'all get to go through the rapid fires that we put everybody through. And I'm going to start, Batista, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
All right. If you could be in the Guinness Book of World Records, what record-breaking feat would you attempt?
How many cereals I can mix into a bowl at once and eat? Yes. So far, my record's 5. It's been a while, but I put it in a big old mixing bowl. It took me like half a gallon of milk. It was super soggy by the end, so nasty, and it was awesome. I loved it.
Can't just leave it at that. What were the 5?
Oh, so I had, it's been a few years, but it was Cocoa Puffs, Rice Chex, Raisin Bran Crunch, Captain Crunch, the all berries, because that's where it's at. And then I think I just had like Cocoa Rice Krispies for the last one. So pure sugar, just 100% sugar.
Like my teeth would be like rotting out at that point.
That was 18 and living life.
Yeah.
That sounded like my Tuesday breakfast.
He was practicing this morning with 2 different types of cereals, Cocoa Puffs and Golden Grams. It was lit.
I gotta stay ready.
My Guinness World Record, I had time to think about this, right? So I had like a whole minute. So I will say the most number of somersaults in the water consecutively. Right? I don't know. That's just where I went with it. It's cool.
Without water going up your nose.
Without water going up your nose and feeling like you're about to drown, you're just going and going and going. I think I could do it.
Yeah. I wonder if that is, I feel like that would be a record somewhere. Like somebody would sit there like counting someone doing those.
And not like half turns, like they have to be actual like full somersaults.
Yeah.
And not the side somersault either, because you know in the water you start like tilting. Yeah.
And then they start getting ugly and you start like kicking your legs everywhere doing it. Okay.
Yes.
My question for you both is favorite villain of all time.
All right, I'll take it. So I'll be honest, I don't watch any of the Marvel America movies. I don't know really anything about those.
That showed with that comment. Yeah.
But I will say Cruella de Vil. She is a villain. She's mean to those puppies, and I don't like animal cruelty. So Cruella de Vil.
Wait, but she's your favorite?
Oh, yeah, she's my favorite because they take her down. Or I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make any sense. But she's the only one that I can think about. I don't really like bad stuff, like villainous stuff. So
I like having married couples on here. This is nice. We don't have anything to do. We just sit back. We throw the question out.
I also don't watch any Marvel or DC movies. I at least know the two. Don't worry. So yeah, I don't know who my favorite villain. It's hard to say. Maybe like a Scooby-Doo character or something. I don't know. I don't really watch anything bad either. We watch all the same things, so yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question.
All right, here's the next one. What new or additional skill do you think you need now to progress further in life?
That's a great question. So you're asking a skill that I would need to continue progressing through life? Did I hear that correctly?
So what new or additional skill do you think you need now to progress further in life?
I think I need to learn some response techniques. So I hear a lot of different stories, and I hear people are very honest and transparent with me, and I just want to be able to respond to them without downplaying or over emphasizing anything that they shared with me. So I just think maybe some counseling techniques that I think that would be helpful for me in my seat in whatever direction I take.
I'm going to add on to that because I think that's important, but also allowing what you've done to be what you did and not downplay that. And actually, like when someone gives you a compliment, be able to receive it and not be like, oh, it was nothing, like, don't worry about it. That's been something I've been trying to work on because I'm super the person that's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I spent 600 hours on it. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I'm that person. So allowing that to also be a thing.
All right. And a final question for the rapid fire. This will be interesting to see what y'all say on this one. One place you want to visit before you die. Montgomery's an option too. I'm just throwing that out there. If you want to come back to Montgomery.
Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt, the magnet, all of it. Not going back. No, I'm just kidding. I think where I would go, I've been to this place before, but I would like to go back. It's in Cave Springs, Georgia. It was where my great-grandmother lived and raised my family. And so I think going back there just to see how my dad was raised, and just see like that Southern hospitality and how it kind of shaped me, I think that would be a great place to visit.
I think I want to go to like Europe or like somewhere over there because I've only stayed in the United States. I really haven't been outside of the continental United States yet. I made a quick trip to Mexico, but I was so little I don't really remember. So yeah, I think really anywhere over across the sea would be cool.
I lived in Germany for 6 years, and it was the best 6 years of my life, simply from just traveling. But where would that one place in Europe be?
I think probably Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot of history in Germany. I mean, there's a lot of history in that whole area because it's so old. But
Yeah.
I had a high school teacher who went and visited all the museums and like the Holocaust areas out there, and she brought some pictures back, and like I remember seeing them and just like being really moved by it. And I was only in like 10th grade, so it seemed to make a real impact. So I think I'd like to go see something like that.
Yeah. Just kind of a quick snapshot. Tell the viewers, who are they listening to?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucrecia, and I hail from Florida. I've been on this earth for 32 years. I hold many identities, but the best one that I hold is that I'm a human being. A human being that was born on earth. And so that's my way to connect with others, is the ability to know that behind our uniform, behind mask that we wear, we all are all going to live and die. And so make use of the time that we have on this earth. A little bit more about me. I'm a psychology nerd. I love psychology. I love the way that we interact as human beings. I love the way that mind works and how it responds to trauma. I don't love that we have to respond to trauma, but it is a way of life. It's something that we all struggle with. And so psychology has allowed me to become closer with others. I have my degrees in psychology. I received my university degree from University of North Florida, and I got that before I joined the military. I wanted to go officer, but for some reason the stars didn't align. And I was like, okay, well, my recruiter told me I can go enlisted and then move to officer. And so I went and enlisted in 2011. So I've been in for a little over 9 years and absolutely love it. Air Force has given me so many opportunities. I joined for job security, but I left with a voice of confidence, an ability to come into a room and just feel energized because I'm surrounded by people who are like-minded and ready to get the mission done. And so I've been stationed at Eglin, and now I'm at Nellis Air Force Base.
You mentioned you were raised in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, correct?
Yes, Jacksonville, Florida, home of the Jaguars.
Okay. Yeah, and I will say one thing. I even told Batista that this morning. I said, I give you kudos and bonus points, whatever that's worth, because when we've asked guests to send us, like, hey, send us a little bit of information, I've never had a guest send their zodiac sign. So you were the first person to send that. I was like, I got so much to work off of right here. This is so good. But tell us about your childhood.
So I am half Filipino, half American. And so my mom and my dad met in Maryland. My dad was stationed at Patuxent River Naval Air Station. He's Navy, now retired. And so my mom and dad met. I'm not really sure the story, is kind of vague, but somehow along the way I came along. And this was like 80s time. I was born in 88, so I'm sure something about birth control defects. And I'm saying that to be completely honest. So many times like we have this perfect love story. I don't know if that's the case, but I know that my parents love me. And so they moved down to Jacksonville and I was raised there. And my dad, he moved, my mom and dad got a divorce. And so my mom and dad decided, hey, Lucrecia, you're going to stay here in Jacksonville because you need continuity, you need grounding, and we don't want you moving all over the world. And so I lived there with my mom. She had multiple boyfriends over the years. And so I was able to learn a lot about myself. I didn't have that fear of moving around, but I did feel like the grass was greener on the other side. I saw my dad was in Hawaii, he was in Guam, he had other children, and I was like, man, I wish I was in Hawaii. Looking back, I think everything happened for a reason. I feel like if I had been moving around, I would also think, man, I wish I didn't have to move around. So I'm very grateful for the life that I did live. Childhood was kind of weird, kind of rough. My mom was a single mother. She had child support, but, trying to do things, trying to lead me the right way when I felt like I should be somewhere else. I'm sure it was very challenging for a mom. I was told to stay in school, make straight A's. If I made anything less than a B, I was grounded. So I was told from a very young age that perfectionism is the only way. Yeah. And so that led to me being really hard on myself, like not allowing myself to ever falter from being in a very straight line. And so um, around 16-ish, I started realizing that I might have feelings for people of the same gender.
Mhm.
And that was really crazy in a Filipino Catholic household. You can't be homosexual because you won't go to heaven. And so that was really challenging for me to come out and live an authentic life. Fortunately, a couple years later, I came out to my mom, and she was just like, I knew all along, you should have just told me. But then a thing that she told me at a very young age, I was 18, and she was like, I don't want you to be defined by your sexuality. I want you to work hard. I want you to go to school. I want you to make a job for yourself, get a career, because I don't want people to treat you differently because of who you are, and to continue giving. And so, again, that's just another piece to my mom, that she just instilled all this hard work. And it's up to me as an adult now to create my own boundaries and making sure that I don't push myself over the edge, but rather be grateful for the values that she's instilled in me and make them work for me. And so that's a little bit about me and my childhood.
Outside of telling that to your mother, what were some hurdles? Did you have any hurdles in any other family members or friends when you told them?
I have a really hurtful yet beautiful story that happened more recently, revolving me and Connor's story, or Connor and I's story. But I can go there now, or we can hold that on to the.
Yeah, we can go now.
Okay, cool. So 2016, me and Connor and I met at Eglin Air Force Base. So I guess I'll tell a story a little bit about how Connor and I met. I was recently divorced, and so backstory to that, I was in a relationship with a female for 12 years, and we called it quits in 2016. And so moving on from that story, so that's a whole nother day. But anyways, so I was back in the scene, right? So having been out of pocket for so long, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I watched dating shows. I watched that show Next, like all those things. Like I remember, like, okay, this is how you date. So I'm kind of out on the scene, and I'm prowling. I'm ready to go, and I'm driving through the gate one day. And I just go through the gate, and I see this human that has the beautiful smile that I'm just like, oh my God. And so I pass my ID off to this human who is Connor, and he checks it, and he says, you look like my best friend. And I was like, well, your best friend has a beautiful best friend. He threw that ID back at me so fast, and he was like, whew, and I was like, ah, and I was like, eek, and I just like skirted off out of the gate shack, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Who am I? Who is that? Like, oh my gosh. And that led me to go back through that gate multiple times over the next few days. I never saw him again. And so that was just like very like, oh my gosh, who is this person? Fast forward, I volunteered for an event. I was huge into volunteering, and fortunately, Connor was voluntold. And so he was voluntold to do an event where I was able to look at his name on the volunteer sign-in sheet, and I stalked him on Facebook for 3 days. I'm telling you, I'm not giving any credit to like Facebook stalking or any of this bad mojo that happens on online dating, but it allowed me an opportunity to kind of scope out the scene, make sure it was safe for me to like go into the situation. So yeah, after that, Connor and I met up, we went to the beach, and that was the beginning to a forever story. So me and Connor, we got really close really fast. I jumped out of one relationship literally into his arms, and I was like, please never let me go, and I'll never let you go. And my family was like, what? You were just with someone else. Like you were just like in love the other day. How are you in love with someone else? And I was like, love is fluid. Like, oh my God, yes. And then I shared with them that Connor was transgender. And totally, Connor, stop me whenever you like, but telling my family that they were already okay with me being a lesbian or whatever I was, but for me to be dating someone who was transgender was like, absurd. Like they've never heard of a transgender person before, and they were afraid for me. And I was like, why are you afraid for me? Like, I'm an adult, I know what I'm doing. And so telling my mom, she was like, okay, fine, whatever you want to do. I love you and I support you. You're leading a good life. They met Connor, they got to know Connor, and they realized that it was everything for me. He filled in all the puzzle pieces that I was missing. And so I did the same for him. Fast forward, talking to my dad about it that same year. Absolutely no go. It led to me and my dad and that side of my family not talking for 2 years, where we were talking all the time. And it led, because the religion and our human existence, those two things clash, and they weren't okay with it. And I gave them that space to allow them to take it all in. But I told them I wouldn't change who I am. I wouldn't ask Connor to change who he was for them to accept us. And that was a really hard time. Fast forward to 2018, we had a really hard life family emergency that cleared any pathway or any barrier that stopped us from communicating. And we teamed together, we put our differences to the side. But we didn't talk about it whenever I went home and I was like, I'm here, you know. It was kind of like, we see you, we receive you, we love you. Please don't disappear ever again. And I was like, I never left. I was always here. Fast forward to 2 months ago, Connor? 2 months ago, they came and visited Vegas, the first time that they visited us, and we've been here for almost 4 years. And we had a really real conversation where my mother and dad, my stepmom and my dad, they're an interracial marriage. They've been married for 20 beautiful years. And they said that they had a awakening because they realized that 20 years ago, when they decided to get married or become a family, this country, this world didn't accept them. That they were exiled from their own family for being together because of the color of their skin. And they said that one day they woke up and they realized that they did that to us based on our sexuality. And they felt so broken, like we just did what our families did to us, and that's not right. And I'm telling you, like, sometimes stories shouldn't be like forced. Things should just happen naturally, and that's what happened that 2 months ago. This conversation opened up, and we talk like every day now. Like it's a beautiful ending to a story, which a lot of families don't have. So I'm so grateful for that. But that was a really hard time, but we've moved through that, and happily, Connor and I are loved and supported by all aspects and facets of our family. And I couldn't ask for anything better than that.
And I appreciate you opening up. Connor, I'm gonna tag you in here. So when you finally were accepted by her father, that had to feel incredible.
It was actually really nice. Because I mean, back in 2018, when she had come home from that emergency, it was like a very like unspoken like tolerance, you could say, where they just like, they would ask about me, but that was about it. Like they didn't really want to talk to me yet. They weren't all ready for that, but they wanted to know that I was okay. And so fast forward to them visiting, when we did sit down and have that conversation, it's like a weight lifted off my shoulders because I didn't know how that weekend or that trip was going to go. You know, they stayed here for like 5 days. And it happened the first night, thankfully. So, you know, it allowed me to kind of relax, I guess. I didn't have to like worry about pretending to like be somebody or anything like that. I could just breathe. So I think it's actually helped a lot. He gave us a secret rib recipe for a rib marinade. It's super good. But it's like a family secret. So sorry, I can't share it.
Like a passing of the torch.
Yeah. So that was kind of nice, you know, like just small little things like that have kind of showed me like they truly do accept us, and it's now it's just like water under the bridge at this point. So yeah.
And kudos to you for watching Next and all these other shows to try to learn some dating advice. Now
I was-
people are like, I watch The Bachelor.
I was gonna say, did you get that pickup line at the gate when Connor was working the gate from Next on TV, or was that just a natural? Here I go, I'm gonna shoot my shot.
Shoot my shot. It was totally natural, and it came out before I could even realize it.
I was so scared.
So Connor, you were actually on mute laughing whenever she was telling that story. So when that moment happened, she comes through the gate and has that little spell right there. What was going through your mind when she drives off?
Yes, please
Scared.
fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Fill in the blanks.
And remember, you're under the same roof right now.
So I'm a brand new A1C, Airman First Class. I had been in the Air Force and at Eglin for only like 6 months. So, we're still like taught, don't shoot your shot at the gate. Professionalism. Like, you're the first thing they see when they come here. Like, don't ruin it for us. So I'm like, what do I froze. I was like, I don't know what to do. Throw the ID back away. Like, so scared. So I had a DAF officer, one of the civilian officers that work with us, and we were good friends. So as soon as she drove off, I looked at him and was like, that just happened. And he was like, no, Boca, it didn't happen. And I was like, no, it did. It did happen. So it was kind of funny. Like, we talked about it forever. And then finally, once we did start dating, I went to him, I was like, it did happen. Like, we're dating now. So, but yeah, I was very just like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is scary. This is a scary situation. So
to kind of get us to where we're at with y'all having your exchange at the gate. So Connor, tell us like your story that got you to join the military.
Yeah. So, so first and foremost, I am from Utah, from St. George, Utah. So about an hour and a half here from Vegas. Born and raised there. Lived there until I went to college. Graduated high school, went to college in 2013. Went to the University of Utah. I really only went for a full year. College is really expensive, and so that was one of those things. My FAFSA ended up like kind of falling through, so I couldn't start the next school year. And that was just, I was working a full-time job and just still couldn't afford to and I didn't want to put myself in more student loan debt. So I just kind of was like, all right, I'm going to take a year off, just focus on work, focus on myself. So I was working at Discover Card at the time, and it was like right around the holiday season. So probably right around this time in 2014, I was on the phone with a card member, and he wanted to close his Discover account. So I'm doing my best to make sure he doesn't close his account. And I'm talking to him. We'd been on the phone for like 30 minutes. And finally, he's like, is this what you want to do for your whole life? Like, is this what you're planning on doing? And I was like, no, like, not really. I like it, though. I'm having a good time. I enjoyed my job. He was like, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force. I was a pilot. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, flying airplane sounds cool. He's like, no, I flew jets. Like, I didn't fly airplanes. It's like, okay, whatever. But so he's talking all about it. His kids are, in the Air Force, pilots too. And so he just kind of was like laying out some of the benefits and stuff. And I was like, wow, like that doesn't sound too bad. And then I think right around that same time, that movie came out about the sniper guy. I can't remember his name, but it was like right around that same time. So I kind of watched that. And so it kind of seemed like things were just falling into place, like little signs from the universe. I'm big into that 3 signs. So if I see something once, I'm like, all right, I see it again, I'm going to start really paying attention. But if I see it a third time, then it's like, all right, I got to take action. Like I got to do something. And so those things kind of seem to start falling into place. I went and talked to a recruiter in like right at the beginning of 2015 and left soon after. I left in June. So it kind of just worked out. I did choose security forces. I kind of chose it under different pretenses. I thought it was going to be a different job.
Which is like a cop for our civilian listeners.
He definitely spun it to sound like to sound like I was going to be a raven every day, not just like standing at the gate checking IDs. He told me I would never stand at the gate and check IDs. In fact, he was like, that won't be you. You won't do that. I was like, okay, cool. I should have did my own research. I didn't. It's fine. I'm not mad about it.
You got you on that one.
You got me. But I left. I went to basic, and when I joined. So I went to basic June 2015. Right around that time, there started been news articles coming out about Logan Ireland, who had just started I shouldn't say just started, but had come out and was transitioning in the Air Force. So, and he's also security forces, or at least was at the time. And so there was a lot of news articles coming out about him, a lot of news articles coming out about his wife as well. And so it was kind of like one of those things where you could talk about it, but you shouldn't say much about it just yet. And probably just after I graduated basic, the repeal came out, so you could be transgender in the military, and so that was huge. So I officially came out to everybody, not just like close few. Right after that point, in tech school, I remember talking to my mom on the phone. I was packing to go to Bullis, which is so I was in tech school. Bullis is like our field training we do for 3 weeks. And we're on the phone. She's like, man, I have this crazy story to tell you. I was like, oh, tell me the story. Like, what's going on? No idea where it's going to go. And she's like, yeah, your aunt was, she was saying something that like your cousin saw a tweet about you being like transgender. Like, I told her to stop spreading rumors. Like, what is happening? And I was like, weird. Like, what a weird thing to say about somebody. Like, man, my mom was like, yeah, I thought the same thing. But like, is it true though? And I was like, I mean, yeah, but like, what a weird rumor. So thankfully, my mom, my all my family is just super, super supportive. So there's not like there's always like a little bit of a fear, I think, just because you don't know how people are gonna take it. But not a fear that she was gonna like exile me from the family. I think just there's nerves to come out about, I think, any life major event. So yeah, we just moved right through it. It wasn't like this big deal. She asked me what name I wanted to go by. She asked me my pronouns, and not so like what are your pronouns? It was more like, so how should I address you now? Like, it was like one of those kind of conversations, trying to get that knowledge base. And so we kind of went there, and then I got to my first base right after the holidays, and yeah, that's where I think that's pretty much where we were at, Glenn.
Take us through, if you don't mind, especially like as a child, as a teenager, like your mindset, because I know you had to like internally have like this little battle going on with your identity.
So as a kid, I always felt different, but growing up in Utah, especially St. George, it is super, super sheltered. There's wasn't a lot of knowledge. I really didn't know what being gay was, what like being a lesbian was. So being transgender, like that was just not even a term I had ever heard before. And so not knowing what it was just kind of like, you just feel this way and everyone must feel this way. It wasn't a big deal. But I remember being really small, maybe like 3 or 4, and I think that movie Big had come out, where like the little boy like goes to the little Zoltan machine and he gets that card and like makes a wish, and then he grows up and he's like 50 or something. So something weird like that, and he's like super afraid his mom doesn't like
Hanks.
know. Yeah. I remember seeing that movie and like making a wish on a star, because that's how things work, and wishing to wake up being a boy, but also that my mom would know like what had happened and like would still love me. Like, I didn't want her to be confused, So I do remember making those wishes all the time, but not understanding what that meant, I guess. And so right around my 16th birthday, I had met someone. I met a girl who was from California, so definitely understands a lot more of the world because they're not so sheltered there. Who was a lesbian. She actually she had to move to St. George. Her family kind of forced her to move there, and she was put in a like a get straight camp, I guess you could say. So they were trying to conversion therapy pretty much. So she was in one of those. She was finally able to go back to high school, and we ended up going to the same high school in the same art class. And so we're making friends, talking, and she told me what a lesbian was, and I was like, wow, like why am I almost 16 and didn't know like what this was, like what it actually meant. And so when she had kind of explained it, that felt like it checked most of the boxes, like most of the boxes that I had been missing in my life. Because up until that point, I was identifying as female. I was also identifying as heterosexual. So I was dating like, teenage boys at the time, which is weird. and it didn't fit. It didn't feel right. And so shortly after that, we actually started dating. But it was super secretive, super secretive. I remember just being so like scared that someone would see us, or that, you know, someone would say something to my family, or, you know, anything. So, and looking back now, I feel super bad about it, because I kind of forced her back into the closet, which is, you know, it's hard to do once you've been out, to go back. And it feels like it's taking a piece of you. And so now looking back, I see it, and I'm like, oh man, like that was horrible. But, you know, I didn't know any better, and we were both young, so it's okay, I guess. But anyway, so we broke up, and finally my mom, I just couldn't keep lying to her. She'd been asking me. She knew, you know, moms know. And so she's just asking me like, hey, you know that girl, like, y'all dating? No, mom, like, you know, doing that whole thing. And finally, I just couldn't keep lying to her anymore. So I wrote a letter. I left it on her bed, because I knew that's the first place she was going to see when she got home from work. And I went to school. She read it. And I remember she just called me crying. And she was just so upset that I had lied to her for so long, like blatant lies. You know, she wasn't upset that, like, you know, I had come out as a lesbian or anything like that. She was just so upset that I had lied. And I get it, you know, that makes sense. So we moved right through that. I cut my hair shortly after, and that was when I kind of officially came out to the world, I guess you could say, as a lesbian. And that was rough. Going to school in St. George, it was hard presenting as a lesbian, or like stereotypical lesbian, with the short hair, you know, wearing boy clothes and all that, because to them it defied the status quo. And so it made it okay to like pick on you and to bully you, and just get like snide comments in the hallway. I had my tire slashed at school. Someone put donuts all over my car, which is just a waste of donuts. And it makes me angry every time I think about it. Like, how dare you?
Especially with
waste
your
that-
sweet tooth.
You're right. Who does that? And it was frustrating because it was hot outside. So then the glaze like melted to my car. I had little donut marks all over my car. But yeah, so it was it was it was rough growing up there. So when I went to college, I went to moved to Salt Lake City. So it was a lot more open of an environment. It wasn't so condensed into like that small town, small mind, you know, sheltered concept. And that's where I started meeting people who were transgender, and people who identified as lesbian and gay, and, you know, any of the other identities that kind of fall under that. And so through that, I kind of started learning like, oh, this is what transgender, first off, this is what it is, and this is what it kind of looks like, or what it feels like. And that's when I started realizing like, wow, I probably checked the wrong box here. Let me come back. And I say box in like such a like figurative way. I'm thinking of like a checklist, but I don't put myself in a box by any means. I'm just kind of looking through it that way. But I really didn't tell many people at all, because I wanted to be sure. I didn't want it to be like a phase. I didn't want it to be just like something that I thought I was, kind of like being a lesbian, which I really thought I was. I didn't want to like make that mistake, especially because it is a medical thing. It's not just, you know, for a lot of people, it's a medical thing. You get surgeries, you do hormones. And most of the time, that's not irreversible. You know, you can stop doing it, but once you're on hormones, things don't always revert back. So I told just a couple people. I had them start using the name that I chose. I had them start using the right pronouns, and it just started clicking and clicking and clicking until finally it's like, yes, this is absolutely correct. And thankfully I was able, or am able, to pursue a medical transition while in the military, because I was right before the new exemption, or the new ban. I got the medical clearance for it. So I got pretty lucky in that sense.
What's been some of the struggles that either of y'all have had to go through throughout your military journey?
I think, at least for me, understanding. And I think, you know, a lot of it goes with anything. When you grow up in a town that is all the same, or has a lot of the same people, they don't necessarily understand people who are different, or maybe they do understand them, but they've never experienced someone that is different. And so there's that barrier of understanding. And a lot of the people that I faced have been people who just don't understand. And so they are maybe trying to understand, but are doing it the wrong way. And so it comes off as bullying. And so for some of it, you can kind of like work through and you're like, okay, like I see what you meant. Don't say that again, because that's kind of rude. But for some people, they just blatantly, can't stand it or hate it, whatever. And so I've also had to deal with that and had to be like, okay, like, listen, buddy, like this is wrong, and had to work through that bullying. But I think a lot of people can probably say the same thing with just their backgrounds and diversity, whatever that looks like. They've probably been bullied for just walking around. So that's something I've had to deal with a lot.
Now in our journey, y'all have met. Y'all are at Eglin. You sped through the gate. Then from there, tell us about y'all's relationship, some of the ups and downs y'all had to go through initially. You said you had been in. Connor, you came in. You were a brand new A1C. What rank were you at that time?
I was a staff sergeant, brand new staff sergeant.
Okay. So for the civilians out there, she was basically like in a supervisory position, and he was brand new, just being told what
Innocent.
he needed to do. Innocent, still an innocent young airman.
We spent a lot of nights at the beach. We love the beach. We love long drives. And it was a beautiful yet challenging time because I was transitioning out of a marriage into a new relationship. And I don't like to call it baggage, but I don't know a better term for it. But I had a lot of weight, a lot of walls, a lot of like onion layers that Connor had to pull back. He was super patient. He was willing to take on all of my baggage and help share that weight. And I tell you, it was a lot between financial, between emotional, mental. He helped me crawl out of dark spaces mentally, and he was a rock that I definitely needed. About August timeframe, I think it was, one of my mentors, Chief Bernard, she's a commandant at one of the NCOAs, and she was like, "Hey, I heard that there's some orders opening up. Are you interested?" And I was like, that'd be legit. Like, let me get out of Eglin, because I've been in Eglin for like five years. And so I was like, what's on the block? And she was like, Colorado or Nellis. And I was like, both of those sound really good. I've only been to Florida. Like, that'd be great. I pitched the idea to Connor. He was like, Nellis. It's an hour and a half from my parents. And I was like, bet. So within a month, we were like looking for wedding dresses and wedding venues. And we're like, we'll just get married in Las Vegas. And like, let's just tie the knot. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. We got engaged officially in November at EDC Orlando, which is Electric Daisy Carnival in Orlando, to one of my favorite DJs. Really sweet, really thoughtful.
How did that happen? How did that go down?
Connor?
Sorry to cut you off. I wanted to hear this story.
Yeah.
I had been planning it. So we started dating in like July-ish timeframe, June, July-ish timeframe. So this is November. So it's only been a couple months, but I actually had like reached out to the DJ on Twitter and was like, I'm gonna propose. Like, can you play like one of these 4 songs? Because they were our favorite songs, or like, our songs. So I ordered the ring. I made they're called candy bracelets, but they're just like the little bracelets with all the little letters on it, like the friendship bracelet kind of thing. Made one of those that said, "Will you marry me?" on it. And I like hid it in my luggage. I was trying to be all secretive. And I was so stressed the whole day. Drove to Orlando. Orlando traffic was crazy. I was having like panic attacks in the car, just like super stressed out. We finally get to the event, and we're like, it's hanging out at the stage. He was one of the first artists to come on, which was kind of nice. So I could just get it over with because I was so stressed and I just wanted to move right through it. And it's crazy because I knew she was going to say yes. It's like there was no way she was going to say no, but I was just super stressed. So finally, we're probably 35, 40 minutes into his set. They really only play for like 45 to 50 minutes. Like we were getting really close, and he hadn't played a single one of the songs. And I was like, come on. Like, and I was like, we're running out of songs that I could potentially pick. Finally, as soon as I heard the beat, I was like, he's playing it. All right. I turned around to this random person, just didn't even know who it was. I was like, hey, I'm going to propose. Can you please record it? Here's my phone. Like, it's already recording. And she was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, great. So there's this like thing you do when you exchange candy, exchange those bracelets. You hold up your hands. And so you do peace, and then you do love, and you like make a heart. I know you can't really see that. And then unity. And so you like hold your hands together, and then respect, you like grab the other person's hand and you pull a bracelet over. And so I was doing that with her, grabbed that bracelet. It kind of got stuck on my wrist because I had like put the ring on that bracelet. It's like tangled up in all the other bracelets I had, like trying to like force it across. Finally got it across, and I got down on a knee and like looked at her, and she couldn't hear what I was saying, but I'm sure she like understood what was happening. Asked her to marry me, and she's like crying. I'm crying. Everyone's crying. The whole area was like cheering, and I was like, yes, like what a moment. But yeah, that was pretty much how that went. And then, people were like, hey, you were the people who got engaged today, like all night. It was awesome.
So yeah, we got engaged. And so it was one of those like, okay, we're going to do this. And I PC'd, that was November that he engaged. January, me and my best friend, we drove across the country with our dogs. Connor was going to fly out there. That when Connor flew out there, his parents were in like family were going to come down. We have a lot of family in Las Vegas. They were going to come, and we were going to go get married down at the Little White Chapel in the Las Vegas area. Connor flew in, and I was just like, I love you. But, and I wrecked his world. I wrecked it. And I was like, I can't get married. I'm sorry. And he was just like, are you serious? Like, my family's here. And I was like, I know, I'm so sorry. But I wasn't ready. I was like, I'm about to be alone for the first time in my entire life, and I need to figure it out. I was like, I'm not breaking up with you. I just need time. He understood. He was like, fine, you let me know when you're ready and I'll marry you. And I was like, you're so sweet. I love you. And so we spent, he went back, he flew back to Eglin because he was still there. And so we knew that we would be apart. Fast forward 2 months, I went back to Florida to visit him, and I was like, I cannot spend another day without you. I'm so sorry that I delayed this. But I needed my time. And he was like, okay. So we applied for a marriage license. A month later, I flew back out there. We found out that he made Below the Zone, senior airman Below the Zone. So he was promoting. I was like, yes, you can be my sugar daddy, finally. And so we got married. We got married in Jacksonville, Florida, my hometown. His family, we all got on a plane in Vegas. They drove down from Utah. We got on a plane together. We flew to Florida, got married. And we spent a weekend there. And then we split ways. And then we finally got orders in September. He got to come home come home to Nellis, and now here we are.
Traded off Elvis for Below the Zone. So that's what got both of y'all into in the Air Force, we call it developmental special duty and or DSD. And basically you get selected to go do one of, I believe it's, a handful of jobs. And both of y'all are professional military education instructors, Airman Leadership School instructors at the same school.
Yes. Powerful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like what a cool story. So tell us about how both of y'all found out that y'all got selected.
So in 2017, I applied for a retrain. So I'm a histopathology technician. For those of you who don't know, histopathology is the microscopic study of disease in tissue. So cancer diagnosis on a slide. And there's only about 55 of us in the entire Air Force enlisted from E1 to E9. And so I was like, I love histo, I love hospital, I love the medical field, but I'm ready to go to the mind. I'm ready to start working with the brain. So I asked for a retrain to mental health, went through 3 different cycles, maxed out, and they're like, no mental health technician for you. And I was like, my heart's broken. Oh my gosh. And I didn't know what I was going to do then, because I was like, no, this is what I got to do. And about 3 months later, my flight chief was like, hey, we're putting you up for ALS. And I was like, word, ALS, Airman Leadership School. They're like, yeah, you're a perfect fit for it. I was like, me? Are you sure? And they're like, yes. So yeah, I went in for an interview. They interviewed like 33 of us, me and my best friend, Sergeant Jackson. We both got picked up. We were both lab techs. And so I was really grateful that both of our career field managers released us. And so we both went to EPMIC in March of 2018 and absolutely loved it. Like it was a whole world that I just didn't know that I would flourish in, but it was like exactly what like my flight chiefs and my supervision knew that was for me, but I didn't realize that was for me. So I'm glad that my mentors, they put me in those spots, but that was my journey in 2018. Connor, I think you're a year later.
Yep. So right around the same time that she was going to EPMEIC, I had applied for a job in my security forces squadron to move from just like working flight, checking IDs, pulling patrols, to actually being the unit scheduler and then kind of like the training monitor. And essentially my job ended up being where all of the brand new people, whether they were like master sergeants or just straight from tech school, they came to me first. I made sure they got all the training they needed and then pushed them to flight to go be successful. So I applied for that job. I got that job, and that's like a 2-year-ish tour. Usually you kind of sit in that seat for like 2 years. And so I was working there, and that's where I kind of learned that I really enjoyed the mentorship aspect of it, and really enjoyed taking in a new troop who doesn't know anything about the Air Force really yet. Because our tech school is about 3 months, basic, is about 2 months. So by the time they usually get to you, they've only been in about 6 months. And so, I was really their frontline supervisor for sometimes 3 months, if that's how long it took to get them their training. And I loved it. I just loved every second of it. And so it was there that I kind of realized that maybe like security forces itself isn't the best fit for me, but training and mentoring and instructing is a really strong fit for me. So I went to ALS in 2019, graduated in April of 2019, and then the job dropped May of 19, and I knew that the job was going to come out because I knew the whole cadre already. Lucrecia's of course telling me like, hey, the job's coming out soon, like make sure you put in for it if you want it. And so as soon as I knew that the job was dropping, I was bugging my shirt. I was like, shirt, I want this job. I need this job. Please, like, do what you got to do. Like, send me the application. I want this job. So, and she's such a great shirt. She sends me the application. She's like, all right, like, let me know. Like, I had it filled out in like an hour. I was ready. So I sent it right back. She pushes it up, does whatever she had to do. And there was a little bit of pushback for us. They were concerned about having married people, working so close together in the same shop. They were worried that we'd get a divorce or like tensions would happen, whatever their worries were. So my chief at the time sat me down and was like, Boca. I was like, yes, chief. And I'm scared because he called me, didn't tell me what the call was for, and was like, I need you in my office. And I'm sweating. I'm thinking about everything wrong I've done for the last 10 years of my life. I get to his office. He's like, all right, so the job, I got to talk to you. Like, how's your marriage? How are you? Like, how's this going? How's this going to affect you? How long have you been married? Going through the whole thing. And he's like, all right, I thought those are all the things I thought. Just wanted to make sure like I was on the right path. And so they went, he did chief stuff, whatever chiefs do. And then probably 2-3 months after my interview, I got a call saying like, hey, congratulations, you got the job. And so, and me and Sergeant Batista actually got picked up at the same time. We were just like 2 separate cycles of hiring, or same cycle of hiring, 2 separate start times. But yeah, so I was super excited. I was just like, whew, what a great opportunity to have, and I'd already kind of seen like what the job was because I had seen it from her. Then I just went through ALS, so I had like a lot of like what that was, and I was just super stoked to do it.
So when you went through ALS, Lucrecia, were you an instructor at that same school that Connor went through?
Yes.
How was that? Like, hey, stop running in the hall, or like pay the snack fund. Like, how did that go?
Yes.
he was alpha. So he was in alpha flight. So he was in Thunderbird flight, which is another instructor's flight, and purposefully because they wanted to place Connor with the instructor who he had the least amount of interaction with, so that there would be very minimal bias. So when he went into that seat, they also put him in alpha flight. So that meant, of course, he goes up for flight leader, which means he's now class leader of like 80 something students. And it's like, oh gosh. And like, it was really awkward in the hallways because we'd sometimes ride together, and sometimes like we'd go to the same donut shop at the same time, and we come to the school with the same boxes of donuts. So it was really interesting. He'd walk through the hallways and like sometimes ignore, like look, like walk right past me without saying anything. I'm like, excuse me, I'm your wife. Like, I'm a human being. Say hello to me.
Flight leader over here.
So it was really interesting to see us in that, like, because we wanted to make very clear boundaries between instructors and students, create no bias. And Connor is a rock star. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't create any favoritism, so that if and when he would win an award, it wasn't like, oh yeah, of course he got an award. Connor and we basically left each other alone at home. Like when he would study and be stressed out about ALS concepts, I would be like in my room laughing, because I'm like, wow, he's taking this so seriously. I love him. Like he's the best student ever. But I didn't want to influence him in any way. And so it was really awkward. But it was interesting to see it.
Only ALS people are going to get this, but I'm imagining Connor and sitting back in a different room, like Pamela Bird. You were absolutely, you're amazing. You're amazing, Pamela.
Emily Rutten.
Oh, you had Rutten?
I had Rutten. What a rock star. Okay. She was great until I had to give her that LOC.
The LOC does it. The LOC, yeah. I had Pamela Bird, and then whenever I came back, these are, for those of you listening, these are little fictional airmen they give you in the course. And Pamela Bird was like the greatest thing ever. And then when I came back through and had to get certified as an instructor, they're like, we're giving you your fictional airman. I'm like, oh, please be Bird. Please be Bird. And I got Pamela Bird again. But
yes.
Yeah. So Rutten. Okay. You came through EPMIC. You got picked up at the same time as Batista. Unfortunately, I had to deal with one of y'all in my class. It's basically a frontline supervisor. You are now, the Air Force is now telling you are ready to go out and supervise and have, you're responsible for these young airmen. What's the most rewarding experience that both of y'all have encountered during your PME tenure?
I think on like a small level. So I've taught 6 flights now. On a small level, it's the little wins. Like, you're in the classroom, someone says something crazy and you're like, that was crazy. And then the other students are like, that was crazy. And they have those kind of conversations and you see the light bulb go off in the student that says something crazy. And then they're like, that was crazy. Yikes. So those are, I think, the little wins that probably happen at least once a class somewhere in there. But just recently, I had a student who graduated probably like 6 months ago. She was just one of the students in the class. She didn't hold any specific like roles or anything. She called me just randomly. And so I'm at my desk, doing some work. And she was like, hey, I need to talk to you. Like, I need some resources. Something happened and I need to know which resource to use, which one to go to. So I kind of just listened to her story for a minute, got her to the resource that I thought was the best fit. And they kind of were, because they got her to the resource that is the better fit. So it kind of worked out, but it was that moment where I was like, wow, like one, I made enough of an impact that she trusted me to come to me to tell me this story and ask for my help. But I think that was probably my most rewarding moment so far, really. Because that what a hard story to tell, about trauma or anything that's happened, and you go to your ALS instructor. There's 20 supervisors above you, and you go to someone completely outside of it. And so I think that's probably been the most rewarding thing for me, for sure.
So I tell my students on day one, I'm like, this isn't a surface class. If you came here to get some concepts and leave, cool, but I'm not gonna just give that to you. I'm gonna give it to you raw. I'm gonna give it to you real. And a lot of them, they're like, oh, whatever. And then on day 2, I'm telling them about mental health, suicide, some real hardships that I've had and experiences that I've faced in the military and even before, and crickets. And I'm like, man, I just dived in deep. I thought I was being like vulnerable and honest and open and transparent, and I get nothing. And that's okay, because I know, or at least I can feel on day 24 when I have my one-on-ones, or even during their like core values paper, I get some of the most, they won't say it in the classroom, especially in this virtual world, they won't say it in the classroom because they get crickets in response. But in our intimate settings, they share some really open, honest, transparent, vulnerable stories. And I'm like, you are listening. And I'm listening to you now. And now we created this bond, and we know something special about each other that probably no one else, a lot of other people, millions of people won't know about you. And so the human connection as an instructor, being willing and able to take that plunge first, knowing that you may not get anything in return, but maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or maybe 6 months later down the road, you're going to get that airman or that student that says, thank you for sharing, because now I know that I can be myself. I can be a human being. I can step into my unit and know that I'm doing the right thing, even if it is challenging the status quo. And so it's like, it's rewarding, but it's also like, it's the biggest piece. Like, you're molding the future generation. Like they always say that, like, oh, as an ALS instructor, you're molding the future generation as supervisors, and that's great. But how? Is it because I'm giving you concepts to go and be a leader and problem solve and use critical thinking? No, for me as an instructor, I'm creating a space for you to share openly so that you can feel more comfortable when you get into your units, opening and being honest, so that others can then create that human connection with you. And now we're having this ripple effect where we maybe change that culture, where it's not all about the mission first. It's people always. Like, we have to take care of our people. If we want to reduce the number of suicides, we have to make that connection and crawl into those dark holes with people, and say, you're not alone. And that's what I feel is the most rewarding part about being an ALS instructor. Yes, I love my concepts. Like, I can be a nerd out, and I can nerd out and be joking about, like, be really cringy about it. But this stuff works if you get to know your airmen and you tell them that it's okay to make a mistake. Then when they make a mistake, they'll tell you the truth. And then we can move on using our core values of integrity and taking care of the mission like it's easy, and it's not a hard thing to do, because I know that you got my back and I can trust you. But that's my thing. That's why I feel so rewarded as an ALS instructor.
Also, y'all are both working on life after the military. Connor, we'll start with you first. Lawyer, possibly judge?
Thinking about it, yeah. So I remember being like 9, 10 years old, and wanting to be a lawyer. And so that's what I was for Halloween. My mom like helped me make these like little business cards, put my picture on it from school. I had like a little suit jacket.
You have
that I
like
was
the
wearing.
white wig with the little rollers in it and stuff.
I should have, man, that would have really made the costume. No, but so that's what I was for Halloween, and I kind of fell out of that a little bit. And I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I saw the movie or the show House on TV and was like, wow, medicine looks awesome. Like, these people are doing some cool stuff. And so I really started diving into like biologies and human anatomy and all that kind of stuff. And that's part of the reason I went to the University of Utah, because they have such a prestigious medical school, medical program. I wanted to go there for it. But biology is really hard, and it was not my strongest suit in college. And so I was like, maybe being a doctor is not for me. So I think I kind of fell out of a career passion for a while, and didn't really know what I wanted to do, didn't really know what I wanted to be. But in high school, I was a debate nerd. I love debating. I was a congressional debater for a while, did like extemporaneous debate, public forum debates, and just absolutely loved every second of it. And so I kind of started, I think, coming back to that a little bit with the public speaking aspect. And being an instructor and teaching and mentoring, you get into a lot of arguments with people when you're trying to mentor them and help them, with their life and stuff. And so I was like, I think being a lawyer, I was probably onto something when I was a kid. And so I picked up my bachelor's degree, or picked up on going back to it, I should say, and started working on the political science portion. And although some of the classes are kind of boring, learning about government I don't think anyone likes learning about the government, but I'm really I'm just kidding. I'm really enjoying it though. I'm learning a lot, and although some of it's kind of dry, I can see where I want to be there to make the change. Because I know that the justice system it's not a fair system, and I want to be the one that makes it fair. I want to be the one that can make the change, so that way we can say that there is true equality in the justice system. Because you just can't say that today, and I won't even try to sugarcoat that. So I think starting with being a lawyer and moving to be a judge, maybe a Supreme Court judge one day. But those are the ones that get to make the change. Of course, our lawmakers are the ones putting the laws in, but it's the Supreme Court who can say, well, yeah, I see what you did there, but like that's not constitutional. So it's a good try. So I definitely want to be in that seat where I can help make it equal for everyone.
You were already talking about, what did you say your original career was?
Histopathology.
Histopathology. Okay, so you're the first histopathologist. Is that the right way of saying that?
Histopathology technician.
Okay, so you're the first histopathology technician that I have encountered. But after you're finishing up here, you kind of alluded to it earlier. But what exactly you're working on? You already have your master's degree, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So psychiatry is where I want to go. I want to be in the mental health field where I can make an impact and not just talk about bystander intervention and just like be on the prevention side. I want to be on the intervention. I want to be in there post action as well. I'm so inspired by Connor's story. Like I just absolutely feel empowered by his drive, his courage. And so I'm like, I got to match it. I got to like encourage him by also just letting him know like it's hard, what we want in life, but we can do it. And I'm going to encourage you by doing it myself as well. And I see that the more that he digs, I dig. And so we're both like pushing hard. So psychiatry is where I want to go. I'm currently in the process of applying for a program where I would go to a pre-med program in Bethesda, Maryland, sponsored by the Air Force. I'd be active duty. So I'm waiting on hearing back for interviews now, and hopefully I'll become a commissioned officer, also a physician after going to med school. So big goals professionally, but I feel like our professional and our personal lives are conjoined. Like they're sort of like very intertwined because we're very passionate about what we want to do. We feel a real urge to make a difference, and not in just I'm going to post it on my Facebook and make a change, but I want to be in there. I want to be in the arena, and I want to blood, sweat, and tears all in it. And so while Connor's working on the legalities of everything, I'm going to be working on the mental health side of things.
So what intrigued your interest to mental health and its awareness?
I think a lot of my pursuit was finding out that no one is invincible to trauma. No matter what you do, you're going to struggle in life. And so personally, I went through a lot growing up as childhood, as an adult, even now, it's just facing mental health and being resilient. And when we use the word resilient, I mean it in you're not bouncing back, but you're more so moving forward with more. And I'm stronger, better now because of what I went through, and not allowing it to become my weakness or a crutch, but more so an empowerment tool. And so personally, I've seen that I became a yoga instructor because yoga is like, it's one of those, like, because I went through it and I pushed through the pain and I used some tools, I'm like, oh, these tools work for me. Maybe it'll work for others. Oh, it doesn't work for you. Okay, let's find something else. Let's find something else that can work. And so that's similar to that's like really why I chose mental health, because of my personal journey, and knowing that it sucks to feel like you're alone. It sucks to feel like you're in that darkness. And so I want someone to reach in and help me out. So I want to be, when I'm strong, and I feel very strong in my life, where I have created some really good coping skills, some really good friends have taught me how to use boundaries. And so I want to show others how to create boundaries and create spaces where we can be strong.
What would you say to someone who is kind of on the fence about possibly going to mental health, and the only thing stopping them is somebody telling them, oh, it's going to ruin your career?
I'll pick this one up. So when I was a new airman, at Eglin, the training section, the people who were running it at the time, they used to look up all the new airmen that were supposed to be coming in, and they'd look them up on Facebook, and they'd try to find out as much information they could about them. And they did that to, the whole group that I went with, which was probably about 30 or so airmen. A lot of us went. But when they looked me up, it's very clear on my Facebook. If you go, you'll see that I'm transgender. I don't try to hide it. It's who I am. And so they had made all these pre-assumptions about me already, which caused them to, I don't want to say spread rumors, but kind of were like, hey, like this person's transgender. And it kind of spread through the squadron. So I did end up talking to leadership about it, because I wanted to pursue a medical transition. And that's kind of like the first step, is you have to kind of like let your chain know. So they were like, hey, like part of this is, the regulation says you need to go to mental health all the time. And I was like, okay, no problem. I don't mind going and talking to them. Personally, I think mental health is good for, everyone to go to, whether you're happy in your life or sad in your life or mad or, whatever, any emotion you can always use to mental health. So started going, kind of had a really strong working relationship with my provider. And when some of the bullying kind of got worse in the squadron, and it got to the point that I could no longer handle it, I'm glad that I was able to go to mental health, because I did self-harm, and it was to the point where I needed that intervention. And so when I told my provider what was happening, she was quick to take my weapons away. Good, which is a good thing. But for security forces, there's a stigma that a lot of us are trying to break. That's just kind of difficult to break. But the stigma is you get your weapons taken away. You're a DBA, or you're a dirtbag, right? You shouldn't be in this career field. Like, we're all jobbing it. Why can't you job it? And so for a while, I got my weapons taken away. Then I got the nickname Suicide Kid, because they thought that I was suicidal, and they thought that by me going to mental health, I was weaker. But having my weapons taken away gave me the mental clarity, and it took an option away, essentially, right? So I could really focus on myself to get myself better. And it didn't hurt my career. That happened right at the beginning of it. And here I am, 5 years later, and I'm a lot stronger for it. And, I made BTZ after that. I continued to volunteer. But had I not gone and got mental health and, had my weapons taken away, who knows where I'd be today? I probably wouldn't be in the Air Force anymore, because I would have let myself, succumb to what they were doing, what they were saying, and it would have impacted more than just that career or my career.
You also got DSD'd, and now you're being able to help other people. So, what better message to seek help if you need it? But I think people get lost in that stigma.
Our careers are important. Don't get me wrong. Like, it gives us a means to meet our minimal needs of feeling safe and secure, right? So don't get me wrong. I know it's important, but take away your career, fast forward to retirement or whatever you're working towards, you still have to have a life. You still have to be living. And so if you're at that brink of career versus life, your career comes and goes. We're going to get forced out in the next 2-3 years. Or it doesn't, who knows? But your life is important. Your heart beating is important.
So, LB, you're a suicide advocate. What sparked your interest in?
In high school, right after high school, I had a friend. They call a lot of times there's this like training called Safe Talk, and they talk about how people who are thinking about suicide will give you invitations into their mind. Right after high school, I had a friend, and his name was Chase, and I knew he was going through some struggles, but I didn't understand what suicide was. I thought it was like an issue outside of my circle. Like, why would anyone take their own life? Like, I had never thought of that at that point. So I was like, oh, whatever. He called me, and I didn't answer. The next day I found out that he killed himself. And for a long time I beat myself up. I was like, oh my God, like if I just answer the phone, like maybe he'd still be here today. That was a thought process that I went down too long for too hard. So I had to educate myself. And as I was like learning about it, I was like, wow, like it's not my fault that he killed himself. He invited me into his mind. I wasn't available. That's no fault to me or to him. I had some family emergencies. I had some family members, close friends, go through some things. Myself, I've had some dark thoughts. And not understanding that led me to want to understand it, if that makes sense. Like became almost obsessed with it, but not in an unhealthy way, but more so like, why is this happening and how can I prevent it? And so taking the space of suicide prevention or intervention, postvention, all of those things are important because our lives, I don't want to say like, because I don't want to like cut off anyone from understanding because of like a religious standpoint or spiritual standpoint, but we're given this opportunity to make do. Like, I don't know what's going to happen before or after my life here on this earth, but what I know is now. And I know that my life is important. I know that those lives around me are important and what we do matters. And that I know that I matter. But there was a point in my life where I felt like I didn't matter and that this world would go on without me and that I couldn't make a difference. And that's crazy because I know that I matter now. So that's really why I dig into it, is just realizing that we're so worthy of this heartbeat. We're so worthy of our mind being able to help us figure things out. And knowing that, hey, yes, we know there's life and death, but there's beauty in the life. There's beauty in the dash. The dash between birth and death.
Sexual assault advocate. What sparked that?
You know, I won't go too much into detail, but we know that sexual abuse happens. We know that child abuse, sexual child abuse happens, and that's not okay. It's not. So taking a stance and saying like, we have to change the way that our minds think about sexuality, sexualizing children, like that's absurd. Stop doing that. Taking a stand for that, because we also know that cycles. If people grow up in abusive homes, they're more abusive. If people grow up in alcoholic homes, they're more likely to be alcoholic. And so taking a stance to that, because what happens to children in their homes as a young child influences the rest of their lives with the relationships that they have, the way that they interact with others, the level of trust that they give to others in their jobs and their personal lives. Sexual assault is not okay. So I wanted to create a space here in the military because I knew it was happening, where we create a zero tolerance. And it's not just an idea, but more so, I'm going to take a stance against it, and I'm going to talk to others about it, and I'm going to educate others about it, because we can't just do it alone. Like, all of us have to like pay attention to those weird things that are happening around us. If people are saying weird things, call them out on that, because we can look at the website, the JAG websites. We can see UCMJ violations all the time. That child abuse is happening, sexual assault is happening. And because it's happening, what are we going to do then? We gotta know what to do then, when someone tells you, and being okay with yourself to be able to have that conversation and give people their options and not just act like it's not theirs. Because if someone opens up their heart to you and shares a very intimate, traumatic experience with you, you have to know what to do. And sometimes we don't know what to do, but we at least need to know who to go to. And so for me, I just want to create a space for myself that people can come to me, because I can tell you green dot, red dot, the 3Ds, all that stuff. But I need to make sure that others around me feel safe. And so I do that. And all these things about advocacy and just like, it's just opening up the floodgates. It's allowing people to know that you can come talk to me about anything. And I may not know what to say or what to do, but I'll get you in the right hands because you matter. And that's what it all just comes down to, is that beating heart.
So we talked about suicide advocate, sexual assault advocate. What about what does it mean to be LGBTQ plus advocate?
So I think being a LGBTQ plus advocate is creating a space for anyone who identifies with any of those, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual plus umbrella, and giving them the space to be who they are. And not making them feel like an outcast or feeling weird or feeling abnormal. And so a lot of the LGBT plus members that came before us, they felt that that they were living in a society in the 70s, 80s, early 2000s, 2010 that told them they were abnormal and that they had to hide themselves. DADT was repealed in 2011, and that opened up the ability to be gay or lesbian, but it didn't make it okay necessarily because we were so used to judging still. So moving forward, being the advocate to say, hey, first off, saying that's so gay is super disrespectful. Saying, making it clear that, you won't tolerate jokes like that. So that way everyone can feel safe in their own skin, can feel safe in their work environments, can feel, safe to be who they are. I think that's really what the biggest advocation is for it. I was in like a transgender group at Eglin, where a lot of us from around the base would come and just talk to each other, once or twice a month, and just say like, hey, these are some of the things I'm dealing with. And some of the stories that they would tell it's really sad to hear, like, they're facing backlash because they grew their hair out longer, or they finally started presenting as their correct gender, and so now they're getting backlash for it, or people willfully and purposefully aren't using their correct pronouns. And this is in like 2016, 2017. It's not too long ago, but that's so gross. If I were to look at either of you and say, oh yeah, Trip Bodeheimer is a girl, and just willfully disrespect you in that way, or whatever way you don't identify, that would be unheard of, and people would be pissed. But we didn't give the ability for LGBTQ plus to be upset or to fight for themselves for a long time. And so now that we can fight for ourselves, we fight for ourselves, and we fight for the others who couldn't fight for themselves.
I like when Connor says space. I've seen an acronym somewhere. It says something along the lines of SPACE stands for safety, predictability, and controlled environments. It's a place where people can feel safe. They can kind of know what's going to happen next, and they can control how much is shared or not shared. And creating a space, it's simply that. Is allowing them to be feeling like they're normal, to feel like they can share some of those hard moments in their lives where they are facing some adversity, and someone else will understand. And maybe that no one can do anything about it, but it's just a safe space.
Yeah, I know we keep saying it. I do think it's remarkable, all the stuff y'all are advocates for. Just your journeys to where y'all are at today, and all the goodness that y'all are spreading out there, not just within the Air Force, but for just, like you said, humans. I think it's truly remarkable. And not just with humans, but y'all are dog lovers too. Candor and Valentine. Okay, so talk to us about your dogs on here.
So we have 2 dogs. Valentine, she is 12, almost 13. But she's like a little lab mix, a little golden lab mix. Super cute, super sassy. She's definitely very moody. She will let you know if you have upset her, and she'll just give you this like side eye, like, how annoying are you today? So she is like the master at this side eye look. And then we have Candor, who's 3, and just full of energy, super puppy, just can't stay still, always has like little wiggle butts and zoomies, and he's just very playful. Yeah, I love my dogs. They're great. They're definitely like my little kids.
And the beautiful thing about our two dogs is, they're like our kids. We haven't been successful in our own fertility journey, and it's like sucks, like we can't have babies right now, but maybe for a reason, so we'll leave it at that, like maybe down the road. But these are our children. These are two that we provide for. Seeing them light up whenever we give them toys and Christmas presents yesterday and like this whole week, it's so exciting to see them so happy. We recently had Max pass away. Max was 15 and a half, almost 16. He would have been 16 next week. And he passed away 2 months ago. And our hearts and our home is still so empty without him that we're almost like thinking about getting another dog just to fill the space. But a beautiful thing about dogs is that they're here for such a short amount of time, but they give us a lifetime. To us, they are just a piece of our home, but to them, we're everything in their home. And so their hearts are so huge. And so beautiful story real quick. Max, when he passed away, he was able to pass away in our home. We had a vet come to that home, allow us those final moments with him in the safety of his own home and in his favorite spot. And so to be able to see the transgression of like life, it's beautiful, because their life is so short. And so while they're here, we're gonna love them so much.
We had a dog that was 17, little Lhasa Apso, and she was my world. That still, losing her was one of the most painful moments of my life. But I read an article, I'll send it to you if I can find it, but it was talking about why dogs live such a shorter life. And it was because they understand life. They do it the right way. They're happy. They enjoy company of people. They enjoy you walking through the door every single time. They enjoy cuddling with you. They enjoy love. They are just happy, and they understand stuff that 80 years of a human living their life never comprehends. You always know where they're coming from, and they have their little quirks. They don't understand that I teach on Zoom or Teams. They want to be fed at a certain time and do all this, but it was a really good article that really puts things into perspective. And it's like, you wish you could almost be more like them and capture that much in 16 years that, like I said, people get 80 years old and they never really understand.
Thank you for that. And yes, please send that article if you can find it.
Yeah, I had my girls crying the other night. I was like, so spend more time with the dogs. Get off your phone. Yeah.
Yes.
For both of you guys, by the end of your Air Force career, what do you guys want to be known for? And then 30 years after?
I think for me, by the end of my career, I want to be known for compassion and understanding. That's something I take into the classroom with me every time I teach is compassion. I'm not big into like, I'm a staff sergeant, listen to me. Like that's not who I am. And so I don't bring that into my classroom. And I try to impress onto my students that same mentality of like, you are this person's big brother or big sister now. Like you get to take care of them just like you would your siblings. So hopefully you didn't beat up your siblings when you were a little kid, hopefully you took care of them. But that's kind of my mentality. So I guess like a big brother would be how I wanted to be remembered. And then, I guess further down the line, 30 years down the line, probably the same thing, just a happy, like, go lucky, just detailing my car, smoking some brisket or something, just minding my own business, advocating, fighting, but just a big brother.
For me, at the end of the 20 years, end of the 30 is that our home is always open, that we always have a place for you to stay. Whether you want to sit and play board games with us, or if you just want to hang out and lesson prep, John, that our home is always open no matter what for however long, and we will never say no. And I know, never saying no creates weary gray line boundaries, but I just want people to feel like, or know, and really in their heart feel that we're there for them and that they never have to do anything alone. And you don't have to, because we're here for you.
I have to ask, what's the go-to board game at Bocanegra House?
Ticket to Ride, 100%.
Okay.
It is I love this board game. Pretty much you have a map of the United States, and there's like routes that you create from like city to city. So one of the routes that you may have to do would be like Los Angeles to New York, and you have to like save up a bunch of color cards to be able to like complete this route. And so it's super strategic because you don't know what routes other people have, and they may have routes that require like your train track. And so you have to like fight for your train track. It's super strategic. I love that game. I could play that game all day.
Okay. I've seen that one before. I think I saw it like at Walmart or Target or somewhere. We got a Beetlejuice Monopoly for my youngest daughter. She's big into Beetlejuice right now. And it was funny because my wife works at a credit union, and her and I were the first two out the other night. And my daughters basically wiped us out of the game. They got us both bankrupt. And yeah, and they were getting cutthroat too. They were like buying properties that were the color I already had, and they're like, we're gonna have to work out a deal. Yeah, they were pretty cutthroat with it. Yeah, I'm all about some board games right now. Batista, what's your go-to? It's gonna be like Candyland or something. Takes like 5 minutes to play.
It's gonna take me 5 minutes to think about it. I mean, I don't really play.
By the way, I get cutthroat in Candyland too. I'm just throwing that out there.
What about that one with the pictures and stuff, and you have to guess the
person's
picture? Guess who? That's probably, is that a board game? Would that be considered one?
Yeah, that'd be a board game. It's like a flip board game. But yeah.
I'm always down to play Guess Who.
Guess Who? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank both of you for being here, doing this with us today. I think that, I hate to say this because we've had some phenomenal episodes, but I think this is like a must listen for anybody in or out of the military. And I think y'all have an incredible story. I think y'all have an inspirational story for so many people out there. And it's inspirational for me listening to y'all because y'all get me more motivated to do what I do. And I just think that y'all are incredible people. And thank y'all for being here today. Batista, what parting words you got?
Oh man, I have all these notes. I don't even know where to go. Connor, LB, two of the realest people I know. I think we had a little pre-interview before this, right? Because I value our friendship so much. You know, I don't know. I don't know if I want to put your story out there, you know, or whatnot. I'm so happy we did. I'm so happy Bodie took on this podcast with you guys, you know, because you guys have such a great story. You know, there were so many blanks that were filled and I didn't even know that were there. You know, I've heard your story, but not your whole story, right? And then to go back to a story. Yeah, Bodie taught me at EPMIC how to be an instructor, and then the pandemic hit, right? So he taught me in class setting. I've told this story before. And then we quickly had to learn together, Connor, me and LB, how to teach online. So they opened their door to me. We wore our masks, stayed 6 feet apart, and we were like, how are we going to teach all this stuff online, right? And man, and I think that was the first time now hearing you guys' story that Connor and LB got to like get together and hear how each other teach, right? So we were bouncing off ideas off each other, and you know, we did it. And we were one of the first ALS to go 100% online, if the first. I know when I was shadowing LB's class, you know, I think you just need to hear this podcast once to know that her class is amazing. Watching her teach was amazing. It was definitely my favorite class when I was shadowing. I only got to watch 2 for Connor's, but with everything we talk about, you know, I'm sure your class is amazing too. And I know when you get your student feedback and surveys, they're always just saying the most amazing things about you. So it's really good to have you guys on the show. Your guys' time. Show my love to you by getting you Taco Bell because you guys only live like 4 minutes away from my house. So if I go to Taco Bell, I make sure to call them. But I appreciate you guys' time. Just know I love you guys and I appreciate you guys' time.
Last comments for the two of you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. You know, the idea of a podcast it's kind of intimidating, and hearing the other people that you've had on your podcast, I was thinking to myself, like, why are we here? And I asked John, like, and he reassured us, like, hey, you guys have a story to tell, and why don't you just use our platform? And so I'm so grateful to John and Bodie. Like, you guys are rocking it. You guys are taking a plunge into the unknown. You have a lot of great people to look after, but I think you guys are on your own path and your own journey, and we are here to support you. We're the type of people who will just like, you know what, we'll put ourselves out there for you guys. Like, why not? So you guys are doing wonderful. I've only heard great things about you, Bodhi. Like John talks about you since I met John, he's talked about you in such a great way. He's taken you on. I don't know. He calls you his mentor. I don't know if you know that or not,
Yeah,
but
he calls me a lot. Yeah, he calls me a lot of things, but not mentor.
I call him Brody.
He definitely looks up to you. So I knew going into this that we could trust you. John, thank you for trusting us, and know that we love you too, man. Like you, Julia and Zeke are amazing human beings, and you guys are an extension of our family, and you're always welcome to come over, and maybe we'll get guess who. And don't worry, Bodhi will get you, we'll hook you up. We'll figure out some ways to get you some sugar cookies or some baked goods.
She wrapped it up real well. I don't know. It's like, how do I add on to that? Because that was perfect. I probably should have went first, so that way you could like bring it all home for me. But yes, so I just want to say thank you. Y'all are the awesome for letting us have a space to talk. Right, we talked about having a safe space a lot, and allowing us to tell our story, because we do have a pretty cool story. It's filled with a lot of like good, a lot of bads, a lot of like in the middles. But I'm huge in telling my story. I like telling my story because I want others to feel like they can have their own story too. I think Drake has that line, right? Like he tells his story and he makes his story, right? It could be history or his story. I love that line. And I think about that line often. Stop laughing. But I think what y'all are doing here is a lot of that, right? You're letting people tell their story so they can pave others a way to tell theirs too. So thank you for allowing us to do that.
This is Bob Gaylor, Chief Master Sergeant Air Force number 5, and you have been listening to the Shadow Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the Bocanegras and to each and every one of you for joining us for yet another episode of the Shadows Podcast. Make sure you give us a like on Facebook and head over to our Instagram page. Give us a follow as well. Also, mark your calendars one more time, March 4th, for our premiere episode of Ignite and our first guest, Shay Sparks. It's time to say goodbye. However, here we don't say goodbyes. We say hello to a new story. That new story will be told next week with Oleg Lohi on the Shadows Podcast.